Good evening, everybody. This meeting is called to order, and welcome to another board meeting of the Boynton Beach Community Redevelopment Agency. Today is Tuesday, August 8th, 2023, and the time is now 6:03 p.m. As always, I want to remind everybody of our rules of civility and decorum. Board members must first be addressed by the chair and not interrupt a speaker. Public comment must be addressed to the commission, to the board as a whole, and not to an individual on the dais or in the audience. Disruptive behaviors, yelling, stamping of feet, all of that are strictly prohibited. So I would like to begin with an invocation led by Board Member Hay, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Board Member Cruz. Let's all stand for the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Oh Lord our God, before we petition you for anything, we want to thank you for everything. We thank you for your grace and mercy. We thank you for the many projects that you have allowed in our great city of Boynton Beach, Florida. We thank you right now for allowing us to gather this evening to make decisions for our communities. May we use our best skills and judgment, keeping ourselves impartial and neutral as we consider the merits and pitfalls of each matter that is placed before us. Help us, Lord, to always act in accordance with what is best for our communities and our fellow citizens. Bless the members of this CRA board, their families, and individually. Bless now our wonderful and expert CRA staff and the work that they have done for Boynton Beach. A good place to live, work, and play. But it is in the rich name of your Savior that we pray, individually and collectively. Now let every heart say, amen.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Madam Clerk, if you could please begin the roll call.
Chair Pansarga,
Here.
Vice Chair Turkin, Board Member Cruz,
Here.
Board Member Hay,
Here.
Board Member Kelly.
Here.
Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Agenda approval, additions, deletions, corrections to the agenda. Before we go around the dais, I want to ask my colleagues to look at section, what number is it? 15, CRA projects in progress. Of those items under 15, which would you like to hear from staff? Otherwise, they can go home and get an early night. Go ahead.
I do want to hear about the night market.
So night market, any other request?
Took it, words right out of my mouth.
All right.
15D, I just want to get an update from the NOP program.
15D, this is the NOP Neighborhood Officer Program.
Yeah.
Any other request? All right, if there's nothing else, let's go ahead and go around the dais for any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda. Board Member Kelly, let's begin with you.
No, I don't have anything,
All
Chair.
right. Thank you. Board Member Hay?
None for me.
All right. Vice Chair?
Nothing, Mayor.
All right, and Board Member Cruz? All right, so, we have one, yes?
Just a question. If you would like to hear that in its order, or would you like to pull it further up for those items in 15?
In order.
Great.
All right, thank you. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
We
Second.
have a motion from Board Member Kelly, the second from Board Member Hay. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Motion passes unanimously. Agenda is amended. Legal, do we have any updates? Good evening.
Good evening, Board Chair, Catherine Rossmell, Lewis Longman and Walker. No updates, just happy August.
All right, thank you. Informational items and disclosures. Let's begin on my right. Board Member Cruz.
No disclosures for me today. Thank you,
Vice Chair Turkin.
I don't have anything today.
Board Member Hay.
None for me.
And Board Member Kelly.
I had a conversation with Jeff Burns regarding 13B and C.
Okay. And likewise, I had a conversation similar with the same items. All right, that's it. We're going to move on to public comment. There were no announcements and awards, though I know we're going to be getting one very soon. But let's move on to public comments. Again, this is the time for non-agenda items, items not on the agenda or consent agenda. Not that there's much under consent. So if you would like to speak on non-agenda items or consent, now would be the time to approach the podium. Don't hurry. All right, we're going to go online. Is there anybody online, Manny, with their digital hands raised?
No hands are raised at this time.
Oh, Ms. Gruffman, that's right. Thank you. Public comments are now closed. We're going to move on to consent agenda. Would anyone like to pull any items under consent? Seeing none, we have a motion to approve the entirety of consent agenda.
Oh, so moved.
We have a motion from Board Member Cruz. Is there a second?
Second.
From Board Member Hay, the second. All right, all those in favor of approving the entirety of consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone who oppose? The ayes have it. Motion passes. All right. Under CRA Advisory Board, that item is tabled and continues to be tabled. All right, we're going to just move on to Section 13, Old Business. This is status update on development project with 306 Northeast 6th Avenue LLC for the CRA-owned property located at 211 East Ocean Avenue. Executive Director, if you could introduce this item. Microphone.
Yes, Board Chair and Board members, Twee Shut for the record. This item was requested by the board to have a status report on, the status of the site plan application submission, as well as any affected updates on the costs, as well as finance and development timeline. As of this morning, Mr. Anthony Barber had indicated to staff he would be here in person to answer any questions. I don't see him out there. So it's, board discretion if you want us to reach out to him tomorrow, or if you want to just move this item to a later spot in the agenda. He hasn't indicated he's running late or anything to me recently. So
No,
they have till October in accordance with their purchase and development agreement, but it was just a status check on the project.
On the progress. No, I'm not inclined to move this out of the agenda or to reorder it any further. He can always communicate via phone call, email, if anything else comes up. But just to be clear, Executive Director, where are they right now? What was the last communication you had with them?
They needed to, we had repeatedly, Vicky, you can forward one of the attachment. So after the board meeting in which the agreement was fully executed, we reminded Mr. Barber and his team that he needs to submit a major site plan approval to planning and zoning. And we remind him, periodically as well to do so. And again, I'm hoping that he's assembling his team to move forward in the process. But as of packet production last week, we had confirmation from planning and zoning that nothing has been submitted or any pre-app has been done since the execution of the agreement. So
That is not promising news, but it is what it is. And what exactly is the day in October? Up until the time that they have.
yes, if Vicky, could you go back to the attachment for the First Amendment? I believe it's the 16th, but I think it's dated from May 9th, the last approval. So it'd be probably approximately October 9th. So you'll be hearing it.
October 9th.
Yeah. Let me verify though, if you can.
All right, sounds good. Any other questions or comments from my colleagues? I'm seeing no.
Yeah, Vicky, if you scroll down some, I think the date was taken from May 9th. So six months from May.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm not hearing any other questions or comments from my colleagues. If there's nothing else to add, we'll continue.
So it'll be November, sorry.
November.
Yeah, November. But it may be coming past our deadline for packet production. So we hope to get it to you, or at least some status on that by then.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on to 13B. This is the quarterly progress report from BBCRA LLC for the 150 North Federal Highway mixed-use project, AKA The Piers.
Yeah, if I may, the next item, if you'd like to hear them together,
Yes,
because there's
that would
not
be
much
practical.
progress between the annual report and the quarterly report. So,
All right, so do we have representatives from The Piers?
while Ms. Camissa Collins up, I'll just give a brief introduction. This is a requirement of the purchase and development agreement, and Ms. Collins will give you the status. And also there's attachments that you can review based on, there's a PowerPoint presentation. So as part of the agreement, they are to come and report on the status of the project.
Great. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, board members. My name is Camissa Collin. I am one of the developers over at Affiliated, and I am heading out this project. Can we please bring up the presentation? Thank you. Perfect. I won't take you through the entire site plan again, but we'll provide, can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So here you have the development deadlines. As you'll see, we've met all of our deadlines thus far. I'll direct you to the first line where we have our site plan approval package submittal. That was submitted about 5 months ahead of our deadline. So just to show you that we've been very proactive in our pursuit of our approvals. And we've met all of the CRA quarterly report deadlines and all of the board annual report deadlines thus far. So I appreciate everyone's. I've been speaking to Twee over the last couple of months. So we've met all of our deadlines thus far. If we can move to the next slide, please. Here is the summary of our annual report updates. Financing, we have not, no updates on financing at this time. We're still very early in the process, so no leasing activity has happened as of yet. It's a little hard to see, but taxes, we have paid no taxes. We've paid all taxes related to the developer-owned parcels. The CRA-owned parcels are still in the CRA's, sorry. All of the other parcels are owned by the CRA. We've paid all of the taxes on the developer-owned parcels. As far as litigation, there is a petition for writ of certiorari against the city challenging the abandonment of Northeast First Street, which is a necessary element for the project to move forward as proposed. With that said, I'll pass it along to Jeff Burns, who can say a couple more words. Thank you.
Yes, good evening. Jeff Burns, CEO of Affiliated. Good to see everybody. Different seats this time, but nevertheless, excited to be here. So wanted to just give you a little background on this litigation. So as Camissa pointed out, we had an entity related to Davy Camelier, who owns the property that's currently housing the Boardwalk ice cream, sue to try and block the abandonments of the rights of way that are necessary for the project to go forward. You were a part of some of the arguments that were made on behalf of their attorneys. And sure enough, within the appeals period following the approval, they went ahead and filed suit. The city attorney has formulated a response, and right now it is currently in the hands of the courts. Unfortunately, sometimes in this business, things like this happen completely outside of our control. But it's our position that this challenge is nothing more than a attempt at a shakedown, if you will, and by someone who has a track record of that kind of behavior. So what I will tell you is we've gone a bit on the offensive, and we've gone ahead and filed suit against Camelier's entities and himself personally for tortious interference, a number of other things that we believe come along with that frivolous challenge. And we intend on holding him fully accountable for any costs or damages that come out of delays that we're unfortunately incurring on this project. So one of the important things, and by the way, this is a $100 million project. These delays can mount, and certainly damages can mount to be something significant. 21.3 in our purchase and development agreement states that we shall submit the construction documents and all necessary applications to the city to obtain a necessary building permits for the project within 120 days of obtaining formal site plan approval. So, as we stated in our report, our position is that we do not have formal site plan approval, and that it would be inappropriate to submit for our site plan because the approval is contingent upon the right-of-way abandonments, which is a necessary component of the project and of the approvals, which is being appealed, in Davis's lawsuit against the city. So it's not formal, it's not final, and it can be overturned. And I think that's an important, thing to explain. Now, while I feel like his case is not very strong, and I'm sure the city attorney can opine that he feels very strongly that we will be successful. If it could end up in the hands of potentially the wrong judge, then we could end up basically having to go back to the drawing board. So if we applied for our permit ahead of the courts rendering their verdict on the challenge, the city would be risking precious resources, and we'd be risking losing potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars pursuing a permit that we would otherwise have to go back and start over on. And so we want to be very, very cautious of doing that. And as fiduciaries of pension capital, we believe it'd be irresponsible. And if we applied and we're granted a permit prior to this matter being resolved in the courts, we would be unable to commence construction because no lender in their right mind is going to give you a $60 or $70 million construction loan when it's quite possible that your project that you're getting ready to build could be stopped and forced to go back to the drawing board. So I bring this to you because in the spirit of being good partners, we proactively reached out to the CRA in May to explain our position that we want to make sure we're not held to this permit deadline and explain our position and to seek confirmation that we're on the same page as partners in this. And although my attorney, Lance, has spoken with Catherine on numerous different occasions, I think as early as, today, and I believe that I believe that they're on the same page from a legality standpoint. We did request staff's position on this matter, which to this point has not been properly answered to my knowledge. So Mashat, we did email you back in May. I know that you were copied on the emails, and I'm just curious, what is your position on this matter? If we do not submit for our permit set or our permit on Friday, would we be in violation of our agreement?
That's really Catherine's question, but we're open to work with you, and it's really board discretion, and you'd have to have a request, but we're willing to work with Affiliated and your team. So,
well, I think Catherine and Lance, again, they've spoken on the legality issues. I'm just asking, what is your position? You're the CRA director. We've made this request back in May to get some clarification on where you stand on this. And so is it your opinion that if we don't submit by Friday, that we are in a position where we'd be in violation of our contract?
Respectfully, sir, it's not the executive director's position that makes her available to answer that question to you. Her opinion on whether you're in violation is not the operative question. That would be a board or legal question.
Understood.
So I'm going to request that she does not answer your question.
Well, listen, I mean, listen, the reason I ask this, is because, I received a rather disturbing call from somebody whom we are engaged in a legal relationship with on this particular project, who has said that she received a phone call from Mashat saying that if we did not submit within this period of time, that we were going to be in violation of our agreements, that we didn't have our financing, that there were other projects that could have maybe moved a little quicker through this time frame. And so I guess I'm a little bit confused because I'm getting kind of mixed signals when I reach out for a relatively page. And maybe, again, this is a board decision, and I'm glad that we're here tonight to clarify this particular issue. But it has been, somewhat challenging from our perspective to just make sure that we are on the same page, as partners in this, important project.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Burns. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think what we would look for is some direction from the board on whether or not we are obligated to submit for a permit right now when there's a legal challenge that's yet to be fully vetted out and defined. And so I don't know if there's some kind of if there's some kind of
Let me first try to summarize the situation, and council and Mr. Burns, Jeff, jump in if you feel like I've missummarized. The situation, bullet points are, someone is suing you, right? And,
not us.
Oh, the city. Someone is suing the city. And now that puts your project into question. And if you proceed now, there is a possibility that you may get overturned. And now you're going to have to redrop all your plans and potentially unnecessarily spend more money than you had to. Is that the gist?
That's correct. So it takes a significant sum of money to get from the site plan approval process all the way through full construction drawings to where you can get a permit to start construction. A significant sum of money. And in addition to that, significant city resources. So what our fear is that we could go down that entire path, and it is possible that some judge could pick this up, overturn it, and we would be required to then start over on site plan approval and have to go back to the drawing board to figure out how we're going to design this project and do so without these abandonments taking place.
Understood. So we have another party suing the city, which puts your project into question. Not your fault. It is another party suing the city.
Correct.
What are some solutions here? We don't know what the outcome of this lawsuit will be. We don't even know how long this lawsuit will last for. I had this conversation with the executive director yesterday. I think the most straightforward solution could just be an extension. Unfortunately, we don't know how long this lawsuit will last for. So, council, I don't know if an extension would be prudent. I wanted to get your thoughts from a legal standpoint and how we would go about enacting that.
With the board's direction, I could work with council for BBQ as the affiliated and bring back an extension for you all next meeting. It's been staff's recommendation that the extension, if one is to be presented to you, be for around a year, so that it could be considered on an annual basis in the event that the lawsuit ends up being long-term.
You mean up to a year?
Up to a year.
Okay.
And I would work with council for this developer to see whether to work on the particular language of that and basis on the end of the lawsuit, and we could bring that for your consideration. But yes, in this case, an extension would be perfectly acceptable under the contract.
All right. Let's hear from the board. I have multiple hands up. Let's begin on my left and let's go down the dais. Board Member Kelly.
Thank you. Catherine, does the agreement that we have, because I mean, my position is in looking at this and is that although the site plan has been approved, because of this litigation, it's kind of in a not final stage.
So technically speaking, per your city attorney and director, the site plan is approved. It is considered approved for those purposes. As a practical matter, what affiliated is representing to you, which is quite logical, that moving forward on the basis of a site plan, a portion of which is being challenged by a third party, is impractical and potentially a waste of time and money. I think CRA staff takes the position that that's a logical position for them to hold. So technically, an abandonment by the city is what was challenged, not the site plan. So the lawsuit doesn't necessarily disturb the approval, but as a practical matter in the real world, it does render it difficult for them to move forward. in consideration of that, staff is supportive of giving an extension so that there's no damage done to the intent of the parties, which was to get a development out of the ground.
That was suggested 2-3 months ago as well.
But there have been continuing
Yeah.
discussions on an extension, and if that was the appropriate mechanism, and at various times that's been acceptable and not. And so this has been an ongoing discussion. And
So a couple just things I want to bring up. So it was proposed that we extend for a year. And honestly, I have no idea how long, this could take. I mean, hopefully we're done with this, in 30 days or less, and we're able to move forward as quickly as possible. Trust me, we got money burning a hole in our pocket right now. So now what if, because right now, if it's the position that we have final site plan approval, and the courts rule unfavorably, and we go back to the drawing board, we don't have site plan approval yet, right? Because then we would need to go back through the site plan approval process. So what I want to just be real careful on is however we structure this is to make sure that we cover. I think we're going to be successful if the city's successful in this particular item, but if they're not, I also want to make sure that we consider that in whatever amendment, because we would literally be having to start over in terms of getting our site plan approval.
Right. I believe the current proposal from staff is 1 year from the date of whenever you all make a decision on this. So if you were to decide to grant an extension, I believe the current proposal is 1 year. So from today's date, which would allow for some, again, you are correct. It is unpredictable how long lawsuits last, but it does give some guarantee that this issue will come back before this body before too significant of an amount of time has passed. At that time, we could consider that. And by basing it on the date of this meeting and not the date of site plan approval, it provides a date certain, and we don't have to deal with the approved or not approved question, because I believe that there's a dispute between, no, I don't want to call it a dispute, but currently a disagreement as to whether that approval is considered effective. That isn't actually a question that we need to answer to get to the result that we want.
But is that even the scope of the CRA to have that conversation, to make that determination?
The CRA is not the land use approving body. It
Precisely.
does, and so either a court or the city or someone besides the CRA would make that decision if we came to it. What I'm telling you is it's probably not necessary for us to determine that this evening. We can simply operate off an extension, which I believe will give the parties what they need, which for the moment, and bring us back to deal with any other issues that may arise.
So under a situation that I just ran through, let's say the court doesn't pick it up for 9 months, right? We're sitting around, they don't get it on their agenda for 9 months, and then they rule unfavorably. Now we have to go back through the site plan approval process, which is going to presumably take some time, right? Because we got to go through all the channels that we went through previously, which took well over the remaining 3-month period that we would have on an extension. So we set these things not based upon hard dates, because I don't have control over permitting. I don't have control over site plan approval process, and I certainly don't have control over litigation. So, I mean, is it fair to say that, at the time the courts render a decision on this, that we have the ability to start the clock in terms of being able to get our permits in for, I mean, that was kind of the intent, I think, of how we structured this, was whenever this matter is resolved, maybe it's tomorrow and I can get it in right away, or maybe it's 9 months. I don't know when it's going to be. Nobody does. But whenever it's resolved, then that 120 days starts, and we got to get our permit in. Now, if it's a ruling unfavorably, then we just need to make sure that we understand that this is, now we're going back to the site plan approval. We don't have site plan approval because a key component of that was challenged and overturned.
So, Board Chair, if I may respond to that.
Absolutely.
So it would not be my advice to council to leave it so open-ended, because litigation is so unpredictable. Technically, this lawsuit could last 10 years. And because of our other agreements, which is our TRFA, right, there is a component of tying up CRA dollars that would last for years and years. So rather than, certainly you could do it that way, but just for your information, when you tie up CRA resources and things for the extent of an unknown period of time, just please understand the full impact of what you're doing, which is certainly a choice that you may make. Alternately, you can set a time frame to continue to revisit this issue, and either one would be acceptable. It's whatever the board chooses.
All right, thank you, council. I understand the situation. This is a practical problem. I'm comfortable with your recommendation of a 1-year extension, and if more time is required, I'm more than happy to revisit it. But I agree with council that I cannot, in good faith, keep it open-ended. But I understand it's a lawsuit between the city and a third party, and it is adversely affecting you. It is a practical question of time and money, of which I have no intention of wasting either. So Board Member Kelly, let's finish up with you, and then let's go to Board Member Hay.
Thank you. So, Catherine, to that end, the extension would be on what? It would be on, because
Sure.
like Jeff said, the 120 days is running. And so are we extending that period, or are we
We would be amending the contract so that they are not required to submit for building permit for a period of 1 year from today. Alternately, I mean, you could certainly build in, and perhaps the best thing to do is to give staff and I some latitude to discuss with council for the developer. If it's an unfavorable ruling, perhaps it's a year and 2 months, right? Or if it's, I mean, we can bring back a reasonable proposal for that. But the actual item that would be extended would be submittal for building permits.
Yeah, I mean, that would be my preference, is that we're extending the time, and then once they have the go-ahead in whatever that means for site plan, then the 120 days starts for permitting, because that's how long it's going to take to do permitting. So if we bucket that in with the extension, then are we then subjecting
understand.
ourselves to an additional extension or something? So that's what I'm trying to.
To be clear, is it are you in favor of the clock running from whatever the extension is granted? So say it's a year from today and then 120 days from that date, or whenever the court rules, 120 days from that date? And I'm just seeking to clarify your position.
Right. So if in 5 months the court rules and it can move forward, then the 120 days to then go to
Understood.
permit then starts then, would be my position. Not that we would give them a whole year and then an additional 120. I just want to make sure that they have the 120 days. What if it takes 11 months and then they have 30 days to get permitting?
Understood.
So that's where my position is.
That was a good catch, Board Member. Board Member Hay.
Yeah, I do agree with Board Member Kelly on this. That was my question as to when does the clock start? And my question basically has been answered, listening to Jeff and to legal. My position is, again, is when the court rules, then we start the clock as far as those 120 days. It's, I was going to ask Jeff about the worst case scenario and the impacts on all of this, but I think he basically answered that. But the puzzling thing in my head right now is, when do we start that clock after the court rules? And I think that's the fair thing to do. When the court rules, then we start.
All right, thank you, Board Member. Vice Chair Turkin.
My position is in line with my colleagues. So, I think when we're talking about this over a year ago, I asked the question of, when do we think we could have the footer started, right? And I think the answer was November 2023. Things happen. I hate to say it, but government does move slow. We have lawsuits. And so, I'm sad to hear this happening. I do admire the offensive tactic that has been proposed, I guess, by y'all to the individuals suing the city. But one thing that caught my attention was that, Catherine, you said staff's recommendation was for an extension, right? But when the applicant had asked the question what the recommendation was, there wasn't an answer. So I don't understand why that wasn't answered when he asked just now.
So when he was at,
What was the position on
oh,
this?
I'm
if there's an
asking the
extension or
legal, I'm
something?
asking the executive director not to take a legal position or a position that falls in the hands of
Right.
the board.
So, and it is not the CRA director's position to make that decision.
That
It's
is
the
correct.
board's position.
Well, so as a,
I'm talking about to grant an extension.
that is correct.
Right.
But in terms of a position that staff finds reasonable based on, typically it is staff's job to make recommendations to the board.
Right. And so what I would like is, and I don't know how to go about this, Tammy, if you can, I would like to see all the correspondence between the applicant and the executive director, and also all parties involved, including anything in relation to the lawsuit. So I don't know how to go about that. If I need to personally submit a public records request.
We can just take your direction on
Okay,
that.
perfect. That'd be great. But I do agree with what's been said with my colleagues. This is not y'all's fault. I am a little bit upset that, it's taken this long, and, things happen, that's life. But, I think $100 million project, what I don't want to happen is this falls out and we just wasted time. How long has this, what's the history of this? When did this start? Because this, I believe
Rather
this
not go
started
back that far.
before
Yeah.
I came in.
It has. And what I'll tell you, Vice Mayor, is our interests are completely aligned. And that's the thing. I mean, we're aligned here. We had a site plan submittal date. We submitted 5-6 months ahead of that. We're constantly pushing all the way through to get our approvals, constantly moving the ball forward, in terms of working with FPL and all the various folks that are involved in this particular project. This is an unfortunate thing. In our business, stuff like this happens, and it's our job to persevere and see it through, and we will. And I can tell you right now, we have several $1 million that we've spent on this project, and it's ticking, and nothing's happening. And again, that's why we're reserving our rights to go after the individual that's responsible for this delay, and seek damages should something happen. But I can tell you our interests are 100% aligned to get this project in the ground as quickly as possible.
That's good to hear, because and don't take this the wrong way, I just don't want this to be an excuse to maybe, look at lower interest rates, whatever. I want this to be, wholeheartedly like, hey, this is not our fault. We need an extension. So I'll leave my comments there. But, sad to see it take long, but it is what it is.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair. Board Member Cruz.
I first would like to say that it bothered me a little bit the way that our executive director is being treated by both members of our here, as well as being questioned. I don't think that, when we're speaking, this is not a Q&A. So, this just, I don't know. I think there could be different ways that we could do this, but, I just have empathy. So moving on from there, I do happen to agree with Commissioner Kelly's point where we could provide up to a 1-year extension. I think that would be beneficial for the project. And then in addition to that, another 120 days to give you guys the time to submit site plan approval. I would definitely say up to 1 year, depending on when the lawsuit, is completed or is decided upon by a judge. So I think, I don't know if it was Commissioner Kelly who mentioned that or Commissioner Hay, but it was, as long as we have the time to know, like, the lawsuit's over today. Hopefully we pray that it's less than a year, but if it happens to be more than a year, then I guess we'll revisit that within the year. But I think it is reasonable to provide an extension because it's out of your control right now that this lawsuit is happening with the city. And I do understand that you might not want to utilize or waste any time or money to get things moving forward. It's common sense. I completely agree with that. So I would be in favor of that.
If I may seek a clarification, Board Member Hay, did you intend, was it your position that you would prefer to wait to the end of the lawsuit regardless of when that happens? Or is it that you would like to wait, have a year extension unless the lawsuit ends sooner? I'm just not clear. And we may do this by motion rather than consensus because I'm not sure that we're all on the same page and I would like clear direction from you all as to how to proceed. So you don't need to answer that question. We can do it by motion later, but I do hear a slight difference in what you're requesting that I do.
So you're looking for, okay, at the end, when this court rules on this issue, my position is that the clock starts. Okay,
Understood.
now, the other piece that you're looking for is,
So in that scenario, if the lawsuit ends 7 years from now, that's when the 120 days will start. What I'm hearing from other colleagues is that if the lawsuit ends in under a year, that's when the 120 days would start. So I'm trying,
under a year.
and so I think maybe we just do this by motion and so that I have clear direction from you all.
Thank you, council, for chiming in on that.
I appreciate that.
So I'm comfortable with the 100, excuse me, not 100 years. I meant to say 1 year extension that starts at the time at which we make a decision. And should the lawsuit be resolved before then, the clock will start on the 120 days. That is the version that I am comfortable with, which I believe that is what you described just a moment ago.
So can I ask a clarifying point? So the lawsuit resolves in 30 days from now. We have 120 days to get our permit in. Again, resolves favorably, right?
Yes.
We have 120 days to get our permit in.
Right.
The lawsuit resolves 10 months from now. We have 120 days to get our permit in. If the lawsuit resolves in 5 months from now unfavorably, and we are forced to go back to the drawing board, we're not held to being having to submit for building permit because we're going back to site plan approval.
That is my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah, going back
Okay.
to
Yes.
first base, yeah.
Right. Go ahead, Board Member Kelly.
No, and my position would be if that were the case, then you would come back before us and say, this is the situation.
Absolutely.
And now we have to restart over again. And so that's where we are. And I would expect at any point when we have a response, that then we will get an update.
Yes, your city attorney will get the response before we do. So I'm sure they will inform you and we'll be informed simultaneously. And again, I feel very confident in our ability to prevail here. I think it's frivolous. Legal minds think it's frivolous. So, we'll get going as quickly as we get the go ahead from them that it's not going to be overturned down the road.
May I just attempt to summarize once I introduce myself? My name is Lance Aker. I'm the attorney for BBCRA, the developer. So just the way I understand it, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, is that we're talking about submitting construction drawings for the permit 120 days after the earlier of the date that the court rules on the litigation in a final non-appealable judgment, or 1 year.
No. 1 year? No, because they could rule.
No, but that's what you're talking, that's why we need clarity on this, because right now what you're saying is we're talking about extending on a year for year basis. We're talking about a 1 year extension. So if in 1 year we get back to this point, we're going to have this same conversation with the understanding that we have not dropped our position that we don't have site plan approval at this point.
Lance, it sounds to me that there needs to be more conversations that need to be had. What is clear to me amongst my colleagues here is we're in agreement with an extension. The fine details still need to be worked out. I don't know how my colleagues would feel, but I would rather defer to legal to continue working with their team and bring us back some options. We're not making final decisions anyway now because we don't have a type up amendment to the agreement. So I would be comfortable if we let legal do what legal does and they'll come back with options, but they all have heard from all of us now. So Would that be amenable to you, council?
If I can have by consensus your direction to do so, I'd be very happy to.
Could I just ask for one more conceptual clarification, which is
Go
that
ahead.
if in the event that the court comes back and basically overturns the site plan, dates would restart as if we had just entered into the purchase and development agreement, and we would still have time to submit a new site plan at least.
So at that point, we're starting from scratch. We're meeting with Amanda. We're saying, what
Yes.
can we do on this piece of property? And
Because-
we're literally starting over.
Yeah.
So that's what he's referring to.
Right, and I think my position on that was that you would come back before us
Mhm.
and say, okay, we have an unfavorable ruling
Mhm.
and this is what we need to do, and we're still on track and we're still on target, and this is our new timeline, and we're gonna push this through and get it done. But that's my expectation, is if we have an unfavorable ruling, no matter when that falls in that year, you will come back to us and say it's unfavorable, and this is what we need to do to now issue a new site plan and move it forward. We get a favorable between today and 12 months. We get a favorable order, 120 days starts,
Yep.
and you go to permit.
Yep.
That's my,
Yep.
Let me say this, Jeff, to your organization. We want this to be a win-win. We want to work, we're going to work with you,
Right.
okay? We didn't come this far to, go crazy now. I think I can speak for probably everybody up here. A lot of time and effort has gone into this.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's unfortunate that we're at this stage, but since we are, let's take the lemon and make some lemonade out of it. Okay, and I concur with my colleague, what Amy Kelly just said. Board member Amy Kelly just said that you come back to us and we see what the best direction to go in, which I think we know, but who knows what's going to happen by then. Okay, so be encouraged, but still go and talk with staff. Okay.
All right, any further comments? Do we have consensus to direct council to bring back some options with the extension?
Yes.
All right, I see 4 nodding heads. Board Member Turkin?
Yeah, no.
Okay, all right. We will reach out and bring you back a proposal for next month.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you.
thank you.
We're now going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is 13D. 13D is an update on status of joint city CRA meeting regarding draft scope to amend the 2016 Community Redevelopment Plan.
So this-
Executive Director.
Yes, this item is before you just to give us direction to bring, again, to the joint meeting to be scheduled on September 12th at 5:30. And then the CRA meeting will be starting after that at 6:30. So we did check with the city staff and city clerk. You no longer need that date for your final budget meeting. So that frees us up for that particular meeting. And we're only talking about the scope of work for the CRA amendment.
All right, was that it?
That's it.
That's it for
We
the
just need your
update?
blessing, and then we'll do all the logistics.
All right, any questions for the Executive Director? All right, let's keep going. Item 13E, continued discussion and consideration of fiscal year 2023, 2024 project fund budget.
So could we get a motion for that, just to make sure to set the date at a different time for the CRA
So moved.
board meeting? Yeah.
So can we say the date and time?
Yes, it will be September 12th for the joint meeting with the city commission at 5:30 PM. And then following that will be the CRA board meeting at
Okay.
6:30 PM.
All right, sounds good. And Vice Chair, just for clarification, that is your motion for that date and time. All right, a motion has been made. A second is from Board Member Hay. All those in favor of the motion to set the date and time for the joint workshop, say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. All right, motion passes. All right, next item.
Good evening, Board Chair, Vice Chair, Board Members, Vicki Hill, CRA Finance Director, and we are bringing back some changes that you asked for last month. Now, I did want to let you all know that the county is changing their millage. So we did change that. And here we go. Put it on the first one. First. I just wanted you to see that it did change. Our TIF is going to be a little over 21.4 million. And our debt service is 2.1 million. Operating expenses are approximately 18% of the TIF,
Board member, can I?
which,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What were we estimating that our TRFA was going to be when we talked about this at the last meeting? Just so I have it, because it's not on this
You're wondering the
paper, so I'm-
change?
Right. I want to see how that huge reduction in the millage rate affected our funding.
it wasn't as much.
Okay.
It was,
Vicky, if
I
I'm sorry,
think we
Vicky
were at
Kirkman?
11.6.
Yeah, I think it's in the agenda packet, right? Because did we calculate that, Vicky Hill?
I just changed it on the spreadsheet.
Right, but if you want to see what the difference is,
I
did
just
we,
wanted to know, then I don't,
if we can bring up the one that we published at the packet, we would have the older numbers. Or last month's.
So you'll see. I think what we
That's
had to
fine. We can keep-
reallocate was 11.6.
okay,
Now we're at 11.2
okay.
for,
Thank you. No worries. We can keep going.
All right,
okay.
let's keep it going.
So our operating expenses are approximately 18% of the TIF. And then for the marina, we have 1.1 million. We have our TRFA that we have to, our contracts that we have to give. And for Seabourn Cove, we're estimating 231,000 for the preserve in their year 9. By the way, Seabourn Cove, this is their last year. So we're at year 10 with them. The preserve, we're looking at 35,000. 500 Ocean, this is year 5 for them, 394,000. And then we have allocated for Town Square, which is 3.55 million. So with taking that all out, we're going to reallocate 11.2 million. And please go to the next screen. We have put everything that you asked. And here we go. So for the master interlocal agreements, we have already 250,000. We're going to add 450,000, which will be 700,000. We are adding an engineer project manager for $160,000 a year. Joint infrastructure projects, we have 200,000. We're going to add 300,000 to make that 500,000. For the future grocery store in District 2, we have we already have $210,000, and we are adding $361,642, which is going to be an imbalance of $571,642. Sorry. Local match for the stormwater is $250,000. Boynton Beach Streetscape Improvement Project, we have $394,617. We're adding $505,383, which is going to be an even $900,000. For the Women's Club, we have already, we have an ILA for $250,000, and TWE is going to have that amended to add $250,000. So that's $500,000 for the Women's Club. Marina ERM, monitoring wells and potential remediation, we have put $500,000 in there. For the Marina seawall, we are rolling over $500,000. For the parking garage, we are rolling over 385. We're adding $1 million to that, so it's going to be a little over 1.3 million. Property acquisition, we have 4 million in property acquisition. Property maintenance for Ocean Avenue properties and the post office are at 300,000. We have our neighborhood officers program. This is our 5th year for 695,000. Commercial economic redevelopment grants, we have 500,000. Commercial exterior improvements, we are rolling over the 500,000 that we had last year. Business development and promotions, we have 414,000. For business promotional marketing, we have 165,000. Site work and demolition, we are rolling over 200,000 and adding 100,000, so we have 300,000. Professional development services, we have 261,000. We are going to add 38,000 to make it an even 300,000. We have our ride share. Ride share, we are adding $400,000. We have for our legal services, just for the project fund, is 250,000. We have allocated for that. Our CRA plan, 300,000. And we have our contingency will be rolling over 140,000, adding 60,000 to make it an even 200,000. Are there any questions?
If I may add also, if the board want to see the business promotion and business development numbers, we could also show that. Those are just our promotion initiatives for the businesses, as well as the marketing dollars going to do that. So we're doing a lot more help for the businesses, strategic planning services. I believe on your podium, we also have our launch of the business boosters. These are things that we'd like to have workshops for the businesses to help them improve and be successful. So if you'd like, we didn't have that in the past, but we want to make sure. And for these items, we just want the board to just give us direction or some comments on the dates. In particular, these were prepared by our staff to avoid any conflicts with the county, city, any other events, so that these are strategically recommended to the board for some of those dates on there.
All right, thank you. Let's go through the list, Sweetie.
Sure. So we are looking to do the holiday installation at Dewey Park as well as MLK now that we have businesses to promote on MLK for District 2. We will have the holiday boat parade to promote the marina and all the businesses there. We are looking at 4 different Rock the Plaza events and the dates that were recommended. And then also the Boynton Beach Night Market to help the merchants, help in the slower months in the summer where they really need the help to boost. And we have more engagement on some of the businesses that have food services to be able to have their staff also man the tents or the location in the night market without having to, worry about who's manning their storefront, right? So we've gotten a lot of involvement through that as well. And we're hoping that will also highlight phase 2 of Town Square once Times Equity gets on their way with the project. So that would be an opportunity for us to market the facility, the wonderful Centennial Park that we have. And then again, we are recommending Mercedes are here, and staff is here for questions. With respect to the Marina Month, this is a little different than your Rock the Marina that we've had in the past. This is to feature all of the businesses. We're looking to do it in the whole month. So it gives us an opportunity to feature the fishing charter, the dive charters, and other, the equipment rental, the Sea-Doo, the rental of the boats, and also our taxi, Tiki Taxi, and we're looking to do it for a whole month. Then the last one is really, it's a new program. It's for us to promote all the businesses in the CRA district in the month of September. So with that, we're here for questions of it.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to these events. I think it's time that we had a restaurant month. I don't think we've ever done that. Have we done that? I don't think so. Not that I can recall. Questions, comments from the board? Let's go to my right, Board Member Cruz.
No questions, thank you.
All right.
I was drinking water.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Nope. The Marina month, I'm glad to see it.
Mike.
Thanks. Marina month, I'm glad to see in the springtime. I do want to say, and we talked about this in our agenda review, that I think we should keep the same model that we have of having that fishing tournament model, because that's what seemed to work. I know the weather wasn't that good. It never is in the wintertime. That's when it's windier, that's when it's choppier. None of those charters went out offshore besides the Seavis. So I am happy to see that in the springtime when the weather's good and it does make sense. The night market, huge success. I know we're going to get to that later. Huge success. The only feedback I got for that event was, why don't we do it in the wintertime? And I know that Twee had mentioned to help promote the slower season, but I think you could, I mean, if you do better in the wintertime or in other parts of the year, you can still compensate for when it's slower. And that's just how business works. And so I would maybe look at doing that at a different time, because we see such a huge influx of people in the wintertime that you could, you know, people might come down for season and remember that place and then go, maybe they're visiting in the off season, they come and they go there. So besides that, I think this is great. I think, you know, Catherine did a good job of explaining why we have to cut down our events. You know, I'm sad that we had to let go of Pirate Fest, but we got that underway. And I think the only difference here is the Blarney Bash is no longer here, right? Okay. That was a good event. I am sad to see that go, but I understand the why. You know, I don't want to get us in any trouble with the with the state. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair. Board Member Hay.
Very good job. I would like for you to talk a little more about the ride share. Kind of, talk a little more about that for me.
I can probably add. I have recently, since the last board meeting, I've spoken to the city senior management staff, Deputy City Manager Andrew Mack, and it was his and our understanding that it's probably quicker. I know the board and commission has also wanted to have a pilot project be initiate as soon as possible. So the CRA will be leading that effort. We're going to work with Catherine, our legal staff, on whether or not it would be something that would be a request for proposal. We're going to look into that, and we'll be bringing it back to you after the budget gets adopted back in October. But the city would like for us to take the lead, and then we'll work in concert with the city on a interlocal agreement for the leg of those trips or the routes that will be outside of the CRA district. We will have to do an interlocal and work in concert with the city, so that proportionate share can be borne by the city, that small part of that. And once we get the data from that, we may end up expanding, the routes or looking at different hours to meet the city's needs to provide those routes. So we'll work with the city on the necessary pilot routes right now within the CRA that we're able to fund.
Do you have any type of timeline that you're working for, or just by the end of the year, next year? Or?
There's two ways to procure those services. We can actually do an RFP, or we can do a piggybacking. We're looking into that for the best approach to give you the quickest way to implement the program. Depending on what that process is, it could be for the RFP probably about 3 months, the usual, and for the piggyback it'd be less than that. So we're hoping, if everything else falls in line, maybe the end of this year or beginning of next year.
But I would think this would benefit the entire city. And why would the city want CRA to take the lead? What am I missing?
It's really with the project management of that and the staffing. So right now we are trying to help the city, with professional, staffing it's really staffing. And we'll work in concert with the city, but we'll be doing the lead, doing the administrative, writing it, organizing the meetings, things like that. So yes, it will benefit,
Okay.
everyone.
That's it.
Thank you, board member. Board member Kelly.
Thank you. Twee, can you update me on your conversations with city staff with regard to Barney Bash? I was very disappointed to see that it dropped off of our marketing, and I understand the reason, and I totally get it. My concern is that just like with Pirate Fest, I feel like there's a disconnect sometimes between the CRA and city staff, and we need to get more to looking at we're all in this together, because the residents don't care who's running an event, who's putting it on. They look at it as being a city event. And so, it happened with Pirate Fest. Nobody cares what happened behind the scenes and why things, aren't happening and the state law changed and we can't do it. All they know is the city screwed up and we don't have Pirate Fest. And so now we don't have Blarney Bash, and it's in this like in between. And so if you can provide an update on conversations with city staff on if they're willing to take on Blarney Bash or not, and how we're going to then address that with the residents in the community, because it is an event that is well attended. It's an event that people have depended on for several years for the city to have. And so we are going to look like we dropped the ball. And I know our reason is that the law is what the law is, but at the end of the day, the residents don't see that there's a CRA and they have certain laws to follow, and then there's city events, and that's separate, and those are fun and can be whatever the city wants them to be. So that's my position. I'm frustrated that we're in this predicament again. I understand the reason, but I would like to hear from you, because we had a conversation and you were going to talk to city staff on whether or not they're willing to take on Blarney Bash. And so that's where I am.
So my conversation again, the staff had called me. As I spoke with the finance director, because the other staff was busy or was not available at that time, the city does not have Blarney Bash in their budget as of now. There can be discussion, there can be, requests. I feel it's not my place to dictate the staffing, and because it is an event, it will take away some other events. According to the city's event staff, Gabby, they were proposing a different venue for March. It was more of the Taste of Boynton. So they were going forward with that instead. I did give her the heads up. It was in the interest of the CRA board to have something, in March that's to preserve the Blarney Bash. Luckily, that amount of money for Blarney Bash is not to the tune of Pirate Fest, right? It's a smaller event. So I can only remind staff, but I know our staff has been working hand in hand with city staff for the past several years in trying to transition this over. And again, I'm not going to throw them under the bus. There has been transition in city staff. There are newer staff that comes in that needs, again, to get a good idea of what would work, what's not. We're more than happy to hand over the playbook like we do and work hand in hand with the city staff to make that if commission determines this is an event. So I can't speak for the CRA staff. It really needs to be discussed at the commission level, and your budget's not finalized yet. So.
No, I understand that. And I guess my frustration is that our budget workshops are in July. Why couldn't we as a CRA have had this conversation in April or May and said, hey, Blarney Bash has to come off of our books because of X, Y, and Z, and you're getting ready to do city budget, and you need to talk, I'm just, I am just am voicing my frustration, and here's another event that has just kind of been forgotten in between. It drops off of the CRA budget, and we hope that the city may or may not pick it up. And so, I mean, those are my frustrations, and I will talk to city staff and see, I know we have talked about other events, but this one I'll have to work on. But that's my frustration, is we have to start looking more of these things affect this, they affect the city as a whole, and they affect all of us, because nobody differentiates our events between, they don't go, oh, CRA staff is here, we know it's a CRA event, or oh, it's city staff, so we know it's a city event. It's a city event, no matter who's putting it on, in the eyes of an everyday resident and our residents in our city. And so, that's my frustration. I will, of course, talk to city staff on, if this is something that can be saved. And if not, then, how are we going to address this with the residents? And how are we going to get out in front of it, instead of just waiting until March and Blarney Bash goes, is gone, and then everyone is blasting us on social media that we dropped the ball on another event. So those are my frustrations with Barney Bash. But all the other things I'm excited about. They're great. I'm excited to try some new events, but that's my frustration.
And I would say it's not a done deal yet. There's still conversation that can be had between now and then. We would do our best, like we've done before, to alert the staff that a lot of these things we can't do anymore. And again, I don't think we've dropped anything yet. There's still conversation can be had, and we will be glad to help wherever possible. So.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Is there anything else to be added pertaining to the budget itself? Nothing? That was it? All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We're going to move on to new business. This is section 14, new business A, discussion and consideration of marina lease agreements for fiscal year 2023 through 2025.
Yes, board chair and board members, this is every 2 years, previous board have asked for us to come back and reevaluate the rental rates for our slips, our 18 slips that is being rented out to help promote the marine industry. This is our second year to relook at this. And Vicki, if you can go to the attachment below that has the comparison. So every year our staff, Brian Smith, our dock master, and Teresa Utterback calls around for other public marinas to compare our rental rates. A lot of this was in an effort to try to recoup some of the costs that went into the marina, as well as looking at operation and maintenance costs that the CRA needs to have. So this year we are recommending, Vicki, if you can go back to the front cover page again, a 50-cent increase from $20 to $20.50 per lineal feet for the various boats and merchants. And also, we're also recommending, again, there's a history right there of ever since 2016 when we complete the marina redevelopment, the history of how much the rates have gone up. We know that with the struggling economy, everybody's hurting. We don't want to do a large increase. We want to be sensitive to the small businesses in the marina. We also are recommending no increase in the fuel prices as well to help out, because we know that's puts a burden on them as well, because the merchants gets a certain discount from us. But we're just recommending the board approve. The board can always approve this for the next 2 years, or do it for this year, and then we can revisit next year if we want to raise it or just leave it the same. So with that, we're here to have direction.
All right, thank you. Let's begin with Board Member Cruz. After we've heard from the board, we'll have to hear from the public. Board member?
I'm fine with the recommendations from our CRA.
Just to add, we're still at $28.50. We're still lower. The average price is, our average cost is $31 a lineal feet.
Even with the increase.
even with the increase.
It's a 50-cent increase.
Cents, right?
Yeah, it's 50 cents more than what we currently have.
All right, thank you, board member. Vice Chair Turkin.
My position is I don't think we need to increase this. I think we can keep it the same, especially with the current economic conditions that we see. But I do have a question for Brian. I don't know if that's appropriate now. It's really just, I get a lot of feedback about the fuel dock and why it's not open like an hour earlier or so. But I feel like if we did have it earlier, and this is not me saying it, this is a lot of the tenants and just people that use that fuel dock, and you might be able to make up for revenue, that could cover this increase. And instead of increasing, 17, 18 people, just if we could maybe open earlier. I guess I'll let you answer the question, and then I'll
Good
follow up
evening,
with another
board,
question.
and good to be up here tonight. Brian Smith, I manage the marina, obviously, for you. Sometimes on the weekends, we're open earlier than during the week.
What
I don't-
time?
So our hours are 8 to 5, Monday through Thursday. Friday, we open from 8 and stay up until 6, and the weekends are 7 to 6.
Okay.
And so in years, as we arrived at this, it's been almost 10 years now, we did juggle around with the times and everything and ended up with this. And there was some times, I think we even took a July and went 7 to 7 all week. And on the weekends, we had some more traffic. During the week, we were sitting around, but I'm willing, to see what's going on. It's a long time ago when we did that. What are you thinking? I mean, what are you hearing hour wise? Did you have
6 or 7,
something in mind?
So I ask because I don't know if it's like a staffing issue. We don't have someone that would come in sooner. You know what I mean?
There's part of it.
Yeah. So I don't want to propose something that's not realistic, but I think if you're open an hour earlier, 4 days a week, there's a lot of people that fuel there that may not even be tenants of the
Of
marina.
course.
You know what I mean? So I would imagine if people can fuel up before, right, and sometimes they'll do it before their charters, as I just think I think we're missing revenue is what I'm getting at. But if you're saying that we did it in July 7 to 7, Monday through Friday, and we have some data to show, you know what I mean?
Been a long time ago.
Okay, so that
So
could change too.
maybe it's time to try it again.
Yeah, so that's just my question, and that's just some feedback I'm getting. I didn't know y'all were open at 7 on the weekends. That makes sense to me. But what also makes sense to me would be opening earlier on the weekdays, Monday through Thursday. So we're grabbing that missed revenue from the field dog.
Just a couple of thoughts on that. If right now on those short days, I can do the 8 to 5, I can do it with one man.
Right.
As I start stretching out those hours, like on the weekend and Fridays, we do shifts.
Right.
So those are just some of the things that I would have to, figure out what that would cost, and maybe, if we're going to do it, I might have to hire someone else.
Right.
I mean, I know there's marinas, there's not many in our area that have hours much longer than ours that I know of. I know in Pompano, there's a marina going from 6 to like 9 at night. And if we were going to be pumping in the dark, I have concerns about that without looking at lighting and different things, because the fuel spills and things like that you can't detect in the dark as well. So
yeah,
I think we could massage the hours a little bit, maybe even later. It seems to me like when we close at 7 on a busy Saturday, at 6 on a busy Saturday, we could certainly make some more sales until 7.
Right.
Because we do have the afternoons seem to be more boats coming in and still needing fuel. But
yeah,
the other thing would be to get the word out. How's anyone going to know if we take it to 6, say on Saturday, Sunday in the morning? We would need to get the word out, on the water. So
Yeah.
we're not just sitting there.
Oh, you know how
doing
word
nothing.
gets on the water.
I know.
It travels quick. We'll see
It
that.
sure
I can
does.
assure you.
But we just don't want to be sitting there with no boats. But that's kind of something we'd have to try, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. So like the reason I'm bringing it up is because instead of increasing or making more of a cost burden on the people there, I'd rather try to find how we could produce more revenue to cover that. We are the only fuel dock, I think, within city limits,
I think
right?
so,
The
yeah.
the next one up is Loggerhead, I think.
Well, Gateway
Or
has.
Gateway, I'm sorry,
They
Gateway.
only have like 2,000 gallons just for their dry stack, really.
Right.
So Palm Beach Yacht would be the next
Yeah.
north of us, and then Delray.
Yeah, so I mean, we're the only fuel dock in the city, so I think there's definitely opportunity there. Again, my intention is to obviously, just present the feedback that I've gotten, and then also instead of taxing or increasing the amount for the tenants there, I'd rather just try to make that up with more purchases of fuel.
Yeah, with the tenants there, the 50 cents increase is something that I would go along with, but I agree with you. If this was a private marina, because the dockage is way up. I mean, it might be 25 we should go to, but with our businesses there, as hard as we work to make sure they're successful, I certainly don't want to go up much more than 50. So I understand what you're saying there.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Brian. Thanks for that clarification.
Of course. Anything else?
All right. Thank you, Vice Chair. Let's move along through the board. Executive Director, it looked like you're about to say something. Did you want to add anything?
Didn't know what your direction would be. Should we come back at another board meeting to look at opportunities for the hours change and then what it means to Brian, and maybe even we have to look at his contract with us as well.
We haven't heard from everybody yet.
Okay.
I wanted to
Yeah.
let everybody speak
Okay,
so we
great.
can get
Thank you.
some understanding of where we stand. Board Member Hay?
Where I stand right now is that, $20 versus $20.50. The rest of the world is like $31.50. Everything is going up now. I think that's a drop in the bucket. And so, make a long story short, I go along with staff recommendation.
All right. Thank you, Board Member Hay. Board Member Kelly?
I'm torn on where I mean, we've been increasing the lease rate for the last 2 years. And, I don't necessarily think we need to increase it every single time. I mean, but, if that's the consensus, then it's the consensus. But, my thought is, Vice Chair, you brought up a good point about gas. And if we can recoup, because that's everyone's using that. And so people who, are using our facilities, then, they should be paying for use of our facilities. And if we can make up that difference by, adjusting the times or, finagling it or trying different things. Like Brian said, we haven't done that in 10 years. So we may find that we can, benefit, the marina financially by changing those times. So I'd be curious to maybe get some, I don't know if we can get some feedback before we go. Maybe they can try some time, see how it plays out before we make an increase. It's kind of my position. If then it doesn't work, then we can talk about it. But, when yes, it's only 50 cents, but it's 50 cents per linear foot. So most of the boats that are in there are upward of, 40, 50, 60, 100 feet. So you're talking it's 50 cents, but it grows exponentially depending on the size of the boat. So, and there are areas that, are much higher. But, that's kind of my position is I'm hesitant to increase it without us having the data. If we can increase sales of gas and be able to save our charters from having to raise the rent, then I would rather look at that instead. I think, Twee, are all of the slips full?
Yes, all the 18 slips are full. There's one slip that's that we haven't rented out, and that's really right near the CMIS, right behind the CMIS. And we're very, concerned about renting that out and having to work, to make sure the maneuverability for CMIS is correct. And then we've got to write figure out what's the appropriate one to put in there, because it is a very visible and everybody would want that spot. So I think we had direction from the previous board, if we were to offer that up, to come back to the board for that, and what our recommendation would be for that spot. So
But
right
it's a
now, yes, we're
small,
full.
like tight spot, like it's very
Yes,
complicated.
yes.
It's not something you're gonna need like
Yes.
a specific
Right.
special
And
thing
so
to go in there.
it's better for us to leave it vacant right
Right.
now, but the others are fully leased out. And I think Brian still has a lot of people interested, and some are waitlisted, as well for availability in the future. There's 10, he said.
10 people on the list?
Yeah,
10?
waitlist.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a very, very nice venue that we have, and we offer a lot of business promotions for them, free marketing, free, anything to help encourage them to further their success, business success. That's what we try to do. And fuel discount. That
Right.
helps. Yeah.
Yeah, that always helps.
Right. Thank you. Board Member Kelly, were you finished?
Yes, thank you.
All right, let's do any responses. Vice Chair?
No, the other thing I forgot to mention earlier was just that I know there's like a lot of there's like a new platform called Fishing Booker now, so the competition has increased because of the innovation of the market, and so like I think every little thing counts. So like Commissioner Kelly or Board Member Kelly, you hit it right in the head. Yes, it's 50 cents, but it's 50 cents per linear foot, and then you have fuel and everything. So like all this stuff really does add up. So when you can save pennies in a lot of places, you can save a lot of money overall. And so that's my stance. So I just want to thank you for bringing that up, because these charter captains, and not just the charter captains, but like the tiki, everything, their expenses are increasing outside of what is being listed before us. So there's 10 on the wait list.
There's 10 on the wait list. Usually on a wait list of 10, when I start working it and I have an empty slip, there ends up being maybe 5 or 6 that are still real, that haven't found somewhere else, that kind of thing. But I have 10 people on there right now.
What and I haven't dug into this yet, but if you know on the top of your head, is someone just not extend their lease, or can they violate their lease with mispayment?
All
How
of
does
that
that
can
work?
happen. We have, since I've been here, since you've owned it in 07, we've only evicted one operation. Typically it's, we come on hard times, or maybe they sell their business to their captain that's running it and move on. So we don't really have the kind of turnover where we're evicting people.
Right.
It's just guys move on to different things
So
or
there
sell
has
their
been
business.
grace. You're saying there has been some grace before, if only one person's been evicted, they couldn't make the rent, right?
Oh yeah, it wasn't
Okay.
because of rent. It was because of other antics on the.
Got it. Yeah. Well,
You know
yeah,
what I'm
I
saying?
know. All right.
It wasn't the rent.
And then just to clarify, Tweet, you said that extra space next to the CMIST, the previous board recommended that cost would be different because of the location.
No, typically, the board gives us discretion to work with Brian, who to put into those leases, depending on their ship or the boats, and the businesses they have. But that particular slip was a very visible slip. Plus, there are a lot of requests in the past to be in there as well. So there's more competition. So the board had asked that we bring it back to the board for a decision before we, if we ever decide to rent that out. So not just to have staff administratively do that. It's a decision the board felt it's the board's to make. So that's why, because, again, typically Brian rents these out. We vet everybody through, we vet everything from the way they dispose their waste to the security of how they run their business. But for that particular slip, the board would like for that to be brought back for a decision. So.
Okay.
Because it is very, very visible and.
It's visible, but it has complications.
Yeah.
And
Right.
over the years, a lot of people have wanted it, and we wouldn't know who to
Right.
give it to.
Yeah.
Who is it fair to give it to this
Right.
person over this person over this person? So we would have to come up with
You're talking about like someone existing and then freeing up another space?
All of that.
Yeah,
You know,
that's,
over the years, it would be a good spot for maybe this tenant that has a certain kind of business, but then it might not, the CMIS might not be able to turn around as easy. And then
Yeah,
let's maybe say that there's a
First come, first serve, is that there's just
Yeah.
a lot of,
serve and,
you know,
maybe there's in the past, we had a boat that was too wide. It would be perfect
Right.
in there, but it would encroach on the CMIS property. So that didn't work. So
right.
it's,
And how long has that been vacant?
it's been vacant.
So
for-
been a while, right? Yeah, I
It's
think,
been since the dive shop was torn down.
yes.
And we got we had to move the person that was there at the time that had been there forever. And then, we just decided with the open space being complete, and then everybody started just clamoring for it. And it was just decided that for now, the open space is new, the marina's finished. We don't want a boat there. We're not going to rent it until, another board or, until whenever something good comes to go in there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But the neighbors, the sea mist with that big head boat is,
Yeah, it's hard.
it's has to have that to spin, and it's just a number of issues over there.
Yeah, I think it might be fine the way it is now, but thank you for your responses. Very
Of course.
fact-finding and informative, so
Of
thank you.
course.
Board Member Kelly?
Brian, while you're up here, don't go away.
Of course.
I mean, what could go in that space? Because we're sitting here with an empty slip, and I know it would have to be something unique. Let's think about it. It doesn't have to be tonight. Let's think of, is anyone on that's renting a slip now? Would it make sense and be appropriate? Is it more appropriate for somebody who rents out kayaks? Is it more appropriate for somebody, so that we can, if we can, rent that out to something that makes sense and that's reasonable? Let's look at that. We obviously don't want to make CMIST upset. We don't, but I think if we're reasonable about it and we find something that really works and makes sense, and before we go and offer it, talk to them and say, hey, we're trying, we have interest and we think this might work. What are your thoughts on it? And just, try and see if that's, an option, because there are so many different water sports these days that, could use a smaller space, like somebody could launch kayaks from there. I don't know. I'm just thinking.
I agree. And I've been trained to maximize dock space every foot if you can. That's revenue. Over there, with kayaks, that's come up before. I've had people approach me and want to put a kayak thing there. And then at noon, you got the sea mist coming in, kayak people, wave runners, the fishing guys are running out. I mean, I wouldn't want I would be worried about that particular
Safety,
thing,
yeah.
but I see what you're saying. Maybe it would be, I'm sure that something would work in there if we could just find the right thing. And I'm about looking into that. We just haven't been able to find what works for everyone.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. I guess that's what I'm getting at, is let's be open with, finding
Agreed,
something that works for our current tenants. We don't want to upset the ocean or the intercoastal, so to speak. But, at the same time, here's a slip that's just sitting there waiting for the perfect opportunity to come up. So,
Yep, agreed.
okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, board members. Let's hear from the public. If anybody would like to speak on this item, now would be the time to approach the podium. After those in person, we'll go to those online. All right, seeing no one approach the podium, Ms. Kerfman, do I have anybody with their digital hands raised?
No hands are raised at this time.
All right, public comments on this item is now closed. So before us is a agreement, and currently it states a 50-cent increase per linear foot, not just for this year, but also for the second. This is what we need to address so we can make a decision moving forward. So I know Board Member Hay, you had mentioned you were comfortable with the 50-cent increase per linear foot.
Yes,
All right, are you willing to make a motion?
yes.
All right, there is a motion And to be clear, the motion is to approve as presented.
As presented from 20 to 20.5.
Yes. And is there a second now that a motion has been made? Yes.
Can I second for quick discussion?
Yes.
Okay, so just my background, I've never had a boat. I'm not very familiar with that. And when you mentioned that it could be 100 feet, I don't really know how long boats are, to be honest with you. Never had one. I did the math and it was 50 cents times 100 feet. That's $50 per month. Would that be correct? Yeah.
Do the math.
So it would seem that, I don't know, if there's an opportunity to maybe not increase the fee, like I don't know a lot about boats. I know like nothing about boats. It's not my my expertise. But when you mentioned that, that was really educational because I wasn't aware of that. I would be open to seeing like maybe if there's a way that we don't increase the fee, because I didn't realize that it would be up to $50 per month. And I think that would be, a lot more than what I thought it was going to be. So if there's an opportunity to not do that, then I would be open to doing that.
Comment on the 100-foot thing? Our largest boat is 43 feet.
Approximately more.
Easy.
Okay. So like 20 something dollars. Okay. All right. Well, we'll see what the rest of the board says. I mean, if there's an opportunity to not increase the fee, that would be better. 50 cents can add up when it's a lot of feet. But again, I'm not a boat owner, nor do I know much about boats. So that's.
So I want to address the motion before us first, and we can discuss alternative means of revenue generation afterwards. But one thing at a time. All right. So we have a motion from Board Member Hay to approve the item as presented. We have a second from Board Member Cruz. We've heard from the public. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those who oppose the motion say no.
No.
Say no for now.
Okay. So the motion dies. It is 2-3. And we have Board Member Cruz, Vice Chair Turkin, and Board Member Kelly dissenting for the record. Okay. Now that motion has not gone through, let's discuss next steps, which would be what other direction we want to give. There's been discussions about looking into different hours. Where do we stand on that? And council, feel free to chime in.
So the leases currently in existence will expire fairly shortly here.
Oh,
So if
thank
you
you.
would like
Yes.
to adopt the lease with the other changes, less the change in rate, that would also be appropriate at this time.
So adopt this same lease without the 50-cent increase.
Yes, if that is what you would like to do. But there are some other changes in here related to hurricane preparations and that kind of thing. And the leases will expire September 30th. So
All right. So we have to do it.
Right.
All right.
So
So do we need another motion?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to execute this new lease agreement, but without changing the 50 cent raise in linear foot. Is that right?
Second with discussion.
All right. There's a second. Go ahead.
Catherine, so this is strictly for the lease and doesn't affect the hours, and the gas thing is a whole separate entity in and of itself that we can
Right.
continue
That's what
to
I'm
have
saying.
discussion
One-
about.
yes,
one thing at a
that is
time.
correct. This is simply for the lease to make sure
Yeah.
that you have a form of lease that you can begin executing with your tenants before their leases expire.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So you were the second. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those who oppose say no.
No.
All right. The motion passes 4-1 with Board Member Hay dissenting. All right. Thank you so much. Now, on the topic of hours, where do we stand? I'm comfortable with having our dock master explore possible changes to the hours. I will leave that up to him to explore what exactly and on what days to see if we can increase revenue generation. Do we have agreement on that?
Yes.
All right.
And I would think I'm sure Brian will talk to our tenants and get some feedback on if they would use it more, earlier or later or,
Exactly.
right.
I want to
So-
give him that discretion. He's the person
Absolutely.
there. He would know best.
Perfect.
Brian, you want to chime in?
Yeah, so I'm all about, like I said, trying some of the new things and coming up with, some possible new hours to try short term. When I bid this though, I bid this schedule that we're running now. So as long as that, staff and I could somehow make sure and amend my contract or I can bill until we decide to do something officially long-term, because the staff comes out of the management fee.
Right. Executive Director, what would be your recommendation for this? In order for him to explore these hours, he's going to have to add more
I would probably, work with Brian and legal to see how it affects his contract. And we can probably try to, to cover whatever the overages with his current staff, if they have to do overtime or whatever it is, while we do the trial, and then bring that back with the data to see if there's a necessary permanent, hours that we want to implement. And that would be fair. But I'd like to make sure that we talk to legal to see with his contract, to see what we can do to help compensate him, and he's not at a loss and he won't lose staff because of
that's the
overworking.
main
That's
thing.
it's very
And right now
difficult.
we're doing vacations. It's kind of getting slow other than Labor Day. So
So we can
I'm
probably
going to
come
need
back
a little bit of
next-
time.
If
to
we can
get-
come
to
back
get
next
this worked
month
out.
to report back to you.
All right.
That's okay.
That sounds good, Executive Director.
And again, everybody's hurting for staff, and that's what, and the
And
marine
we're no
industry
different.
isn't the,
We're no
yeah,
different.
any different. So I don't want him to have to be in the quandary, because then we'll suffer. And I don't know how to pump gas. So I would love to, but no.
Don't? It's just
Not
like at
marine
the
gas.
gas station.
All right, Board Member Hay.
One of those options could be hiring another employee, correct?
Right.
Which-
I think
Which in
Brian's gonna,
essence could cost us more.
right. So Brian's going to look at,
Right.
see how he can flex the
balance.
schedule with his current staff now, and whatever he would need for us to pay, whether it's additional overtime or whatever, to help implement. We're going to try, a trial run to see some of the hours that he's going to recommend. We'll bring it back to the board. And yes, Board Member Hay, that's really the crust of it as well.
Okay.
So, but we're willing to try with Brian's help, whatever is necessary.
All right, sounds good. Anything else, Brian? Is that pretty much it?
I think that's it.
All right.
No, board,
Who was that?
Teresa Utterback, Development Services Special.
What's going on? Who was that?
Is that
Teresa.
Teresa?
Yes.
It's me, Teresa. Just before you end discussion on this, I just wanted to bring up, there was no vote on the transient dockage increase. There are a few other items we need to address.
Would you
Yeah.
like for me to explain them?
Yeah.
Yes, Brian, thank
Do
you.
that, Teresa. So other than the tenant contracts, which you guys have already voted on, there's a transient dockage agreement that we use for boats traveling through the area going north or south. And it's been at $250 for a number of years. And we were recommending, now this is all for outside boaters traveling. We were recommending to also go to $3, which might get some of those transient numbers up from 250 to 3. And that's in here, as well as in the transient agreement I would like to have, like right now we have cancellations and I don't have anything in the agreement to charge them. So I would like to have that in the agreement so we can legally get their credit card number and give them 24 hours cancellation notice. If they no show us, then I can charge them. And then on the fuel discounts, we weren't recommending any changes. And I believe that's the other items.
Brian,
Oh, wait, one more. The insurance from 500,000 to $1 million per occurrence. That's what we're seeing more and more now. And I think that a lot of our tenants already have that coverage. So I think it's time to move that from 500,000 that our tenants are required to $1 million in their insurance policy. And I've collected most of them recently in a file review, and a lot of them are already there.
All right, thank you. Executive Director, was there anything else on this?
No, and just to add that if the board vote for these things, the agreement will change accordingly. I think most of the items are reflected in the current draft.
Council.
If any motions could just be presented as to be clear, if they are approving the document as presented in the packet, because there are a number of other changes in the leases related to hurricane preparation and renumbering of years and that kind of thing. So in addition to what has been explicitly discussed tonight, there are other changes found in these leases, which we can certainly run through. Many of them are relatively small scale. In other words, if the motion could approve the document that's in the packet or not, that would be great.
We have this, the track changes on there for you already, so it's been presented as part of your packet.
All right, is there a motion to approve the document as presented?
I'm so sorry, there are multiple documents. So if you could specify if you mean the dockage lease for multiple vessels or the transient dockage lease, if you could run through them, that would be great.
Board Member Kelly, I see your hand is up.
Thank you. Yeah, so as far as the transient dockage agreement, I think this is, I'm fine with increasing the rent on this because this is outside people that are coming in and using our dockage space, and it's not necessarily city residents or businesses that are doing that. And thank you, Brian. I like the idea of having a cancellation. I mean, who doesn't have a cancellation fee now? Hotels have it, rental car companies have it. Everyone has a cancellation fee. And if we're setting aside a slip for an agreement and it falls through, you can't fill that day or so thank you for, always looking at ways that we can, I don't want to say hold people accountable, but when they run a slip that falls through, that we can recoup some funds back. So I, unless there's any other discussion, I would move to approve the transient dockage agreement as worded or as it appears in the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for this item, but before I call the vote, would anyone like to speak on this item? Now would be the time to approach the podium. Seeing no one approaching the podium, is there anybody online, Ms. Kerfman?
Yes, I have one hand raised.
All right, who is that?
Mr. Barber, you are self-muted.
Good evening, board. Just a quick caveat because I had missed something and I've been waiting on just a quick moment here. I missed 13A because I had trouble getting online. Is it going to be revisited or should I wait till the end of the meeting?
Mr. Barber, we've already passed your item, perhaps an hour ago. This was just an update for you, so feel free if you want to send that update via email, that will do just fine.
Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Take care. All right, and there was no one else, Ms. Kerfman?
No other hands are raised.
All right, with that, public comment on this item is now closed. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. All those who oppose the motion say no. The ayes have it. The motion passes unanimously. And council, you said there were multiple documents. Or was that sufficient?
No, there is another document as well. It's the dockage agreement for multiple vessels.
What about it?
It is here
Oh, is it
before you
open?
for
I'm sorry, I didn't
consideration.
see
It is here before you for consideration with a number of changes that are relatively consistent with everything else we've discussed here tonight, and as in your packet. So again, hurricane changes to the numbering, changes to the years, changes to the applicable rules, public records laws. It's
Chair, it's Teresa.
Yes.
My apologies. Just so you know, the multiple vessel lease is exactly the same as the lease for one vessel. It's just if one owner has more than one. So there's nothing out of the ordinary from the one that you've already approved.
So be consistent, it'll be for the slip owner that has multiple slips.
Right.
So it's the same changes that you previously approved for the marina lease agreement. That's all she's saying.
So we would just move to,
But you have to do a separate motion, yes.
right, move to approve the dockage lease agreement for multiple vessels with the non-increase in the rental amount. And was there anything else that we had not changed? Okay.
Second.
Okay, was that clear? We have a motion and a second. Public comment on this item. Anyone would like to speak on this item, approach the podium. Seeing no one approaching the podium, are there anyone with their hands raised, Ms. Griffin?
No hands are raised.
All right, public comment on this item is now closed. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed to the motion say no. The ayes have it. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We've covered the marina lease, we've covered the dockage and the multiple vessels and transient. Ready to 14B, discussion and consideration of revisions to the Economic Development Grant Program guidelines and applications for fiscal year 2023-2024. Hey, Bonnie.
Hi, good evening, board. Bonnie Nicklin, Grants and Project Manager. This is your annual review of the grant programs. We present them to you every year, so they're ready to go to the public for October applications. This year, the CRA staff's making a few recommendations for starting with the rent reimbursement grant. Just to recap, we match rent reimbursement for the first 12 months of businesses' operations that are new or expanding in the CRA boundaries up to certain grant maximums. Just after reviewing the recent market increases, we would like to recommend an increase to that reimbursement. I provided some data in the cover, but I can just do a quick overcap. Just over the past 8 years, we've seen approximately a 62% increase in rental rates when comparing the fiscal year 2015-2016 grant recipients' average base rent to the current fiscal year. We haven't increased the rent reimbursement amount since the fiscal year 2018-2019 applications. So if you look on your cover, the quick chart, you can see the average square foot is $32 a square foot in this fiscal year. And based on current listings that I'm seeing in the market and speaking with other property owners, I have their leasing flyer and everything, that looks like the average base rent will be up to $37.20 from this year's $32.14. So in order to better match that 50% match, we're recommending that the board increase the tier 1 rent reimbursement amount from $1,750 a month to $2,000 a month, and the tier 2 match from $1,250 a month to $1,750 a month. So that means altogether, the grant total for a tier 1 business, which would be a restaurant, bakery, or hotel, they could get up to $24,000 in rental assistance. And a tier 2, which would be a professional office, medical, retail, etc., that would be a max rent reimbursement amount of $21,000. So that is our recommendation for the rent. Moving on to the commercial property improvement grant program, we just wanted to make one clarification on the time of eligibility for reimbursement of design fees. As you remember, this is our first fiscal year of accepting those as an eligible reimbursement, and just based on those projects' timelines, we had to make board waivers to have those eligible design fees reimbursable because the 60-day window is just too short. Many are doing their project planning further out than 60 days. So we're increasing that from 60 days to the 180 days prior to board approval. So those are our recommendations, and I'm here for questions.
All right, thank you. Let's hear from the board if they have any questions or comments. Let's begin with Board Member Cruz. We'll go around the dais, after which we'll go to the public.
I'll just wait.
All right, sounds good. Board Member Hay.
No comments.
And Board Member Kelly.
Sorry, usually don't do that. I don't have any comments. Thank you, Bonnie, for your work on this. And I think it's important that we're always, helping out our businesses wherever we can and encouraging small businesses to come to the city. So I'm good. Thank you.
All right, thank you, board members. Let's go to public comment. If you would like to speak on this item, now would be the time to approach the podium. I see no one approaching the podium. Is there anybody online with their digital hands raised?
No hands are raised.
Public comment on this item is now closed. If there's no further discussion, I'll accept a motion. I would recommend that you read the motion as shown on the screen with that favorite line at the end, pending legal review.
Only question I had was the 180 days versus the 60 days. Can you briefly go over how that would?
Sure. So we have a clause in the grant or, a statement that says if I meet businesses at various stages in their project, some before they even gone to design and some who have already gone through that. So based on the 2 projects that we had a request a waiver for, they had done the design and already had their permit approved to do the work before they came to apply for the grants. And one of them had already finished the work. So by that time, we don't want people coming out of the woodwork and saying 5 years ago, I paid for design fees. Will you reimburse me? So we have to put a time certain on that. So our recommendation is 180 days because 60 days, some people are already getting to me after they've got their permit and that's just too long ago. So we think that 6-month window would be able to accommodate eligible businesses.
Thank you. And thank you for providing that information about how much percentage has increased for the commercial rent and how we're
it's been
working
a big
to
change.
help businesses with more funding per month with rental assistance. So that is all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Again, if anyone's ready, feel free to make a motion and please read the language as shown.
Motion to approve the fiscal year 23-24 commercial rent reimbursement grant program application and the fiscal year 23-24 commercial property improvement grant program application as presented and pending any final review from CRA legal counsel.
Second.
All right, a motion was made from Board Member Cruz. I heard the second first from Vice Chair Turkin. We have a motion and a second. We've heard from the public. We've heard from the board. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those who oppose say no. The ayes have it. Motion passes unanimously.
Perfect. Thank you, board.
Thank you, Bonnie. We're going to move on to 14C. This is discussion and consideration of an alternative meeting date for the November CRA board meeting. I see here staff has proposed an alternative date to November 13th at 6 p.m. Is there anything else to add, Executive Director?
No, this is to accommodate the National League of City Conference. The traveling date is on Tuesday. So this is something that will work for everyone. And with your approval, we'll get all the logistics in place.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I believe we need public comment on this item because it is a final change. So we will hear from the public. If you would like to approach the podium now, I feel like I need a recorder. Now would be the time to approach the podium.
Yeah.
Seeing no one approaching the podium, is there anybody with their digital hands raised?
No hands are raised at this time.
All right, with that, public comment on this item is now closed. We had a motion and we had a second. Any final conversation? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. Ms. Stanzione, just let you please record that Board Member Cruz is not present at this time. Thank you. 14D, consideration of registration and travel expenses to attend the Florida Redevelopment Association 2023 annual conference on October 25th to 27 in Ponte Vedra Beach.
Pontevedra.
So
Clearly, I've never been.
It's beautiful. You should go.
this year's conference is, as the board chair has stated, October 25th through the 27th. It starts on Wednesday. It lasts through Friday afternoon, with Tuesday being the travel date for this. It's in state. This is our professional organization. This is just for the board to look at the conference and your work schedule as well as your family schedule. See if it's feasible for you to attend. We do not need to know a final count until next month, next CRA meeting is September 12th. Because the hotel reservation deadline is September 29th and the conference registration deadline is in October 9th. So it's out there for you. If I may make an recommendation that with this conference, because it is smaller, it's in-state, that staff can, for those board member that wants to go, we can make the registration. The CRA will book the registration under our credit card. And then for the travel, the lodging and the car, that the board who wants to, the members who want to go can do it on their own because there's different preferences for that. And if that would be an acceptable recommendation, that the board can just give us a consensus. So with that, Bonnie, myself, Teresa, and Tim will be attending from staff. We rotate, who goes on an annual basis for this. And just as a point of information, also, we've been asked to speak on 2 sessions. One is for the Heart of Boynton Village, the Creative Partnership, and the other one's for the affordable housing. So we'll be asked as in a panel expert at this conference. So
Thank you. So board members, just be ready for next meeting to say if you can or cannot come.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Is that it?
that's it.
All right. Moving on to 14E, CRA Board Discussion and Consideration of Executive Director's Annual Performance Review for fiscal year 2023 and 2024. Council, I'm going to turn this to you to introduce and open the item.
Thank you. So yes, this is consideration of the Executive Director's Annual Performance Review. So just as a little bit of background, Ms. Shutt officially took this job in September of 2021. Prior to that, she had been acting as your interim Executive Director. In 2021, this body entered into an agreement with her to act in her current role. That was updated last year. Pursuant to her contract, she's entitled to an annual performance review. And at that performance review is typically when this body considers her salary and benefits as well. At the board's discretion, this performance review can be presented in written form or in oral form. Based on direction from the board last year, we are proceeding with an oral format this year. And I believe that you have some information in front of you regarding CRA executive director salaries in surrounding municipalities for your consideration. And I don't believe this information is in front of you, but it was gathered from staff. Just to let you know that Ms. Shutt's annual car allowance is currently $3,600. The city directors typically get $6,000 a year, which is broken down to be $500 a month. The city manager does not receive an allowance because he has a city vehicle, so his information was not included in that. So what you have before you tonight is the second amendment. There are blanks there regarding her salary and car allowance in case this board desires to make any change to those. And at this point, you have discretion as to how to proceed with her review. You may go around and comment. You may. It would be appropriate to seek public comment because you would be entering into a contract in the end of this if you so choose. But other than that, the review may be conducted in whatever format you like.
Thank you. We will proceed around the dais for any general comments you want to make, your evaluations of our executive director. After which, if it is the pleasure of this board, we need to discuss and determine if we are going to make any changes to salary or to the car allowance as our council has mentioned, and after which we'll entertain comments from the public. Now let's begin with board member Kelly. If you want to make general comments, a year in review.
Thank you, Board Chair. Tui, we've had lots of opportunities to speak over the last year, and I thank you for always working so hard for us and for the CRA and for the city. I've voiced some of my concerns tonight. I want us to work more like we're one with the city because it's important. The view of the city by residents doesn't get broken down. And so I would challenge you to continue to view what we do with the CRA and how it comes across to the residents, that anything that we do here, it affects the city as a whole. And so that's one of my asks is that we continue to do that. I'm going to speak to you privately about some stuff that was mentioned this evening. I don't think it's appropriate to talk about it right now. But, you know, I know that your heart is in this CRA and in the city. And sometimes that's a hard job. So I understand that and I appreciate that. So those are kind of my comments for now, and I'll withhold until everyone else has a chance to talk.
Thank you, board member. So now it is board member Hay.
Well, all of my contact with you, Tweet, has been on the up and up. You're a hardworking individual and you project that to your staff. You've answered all of my questions, no matter how long they take. And anytime we had time for agenda review, I didn't feel rushed. You had it up on the board and we just had a good understanding. So I like that. And you have an open spirit. Some people, it's kind of hard to communicate with. And you're not that type of person. I really appreciate that. And what you have accomplished is just unprecedented. I mean, you have a award-winning organization and it proves itself by what we're getting ready to witness. Is it Dallas or Houston? Dallas. And others outside of Boynton Beach recognize the work and the efforts that you've done and this staff has done. So I hope that we don't blind ourselves to the accomplishment that little old Boynton is making. And I would like to continue that. So I just want to say to you, job well done. Okay. And thank you for your openness and your cooperation.
Thank you, board member Hay. Now I'm going to turn to Vice Chair Tarkin.
Tweet, I think you work extremely hard. I see your car here on the weekends constantly. So I think the question of you being a hard worker or not, I mean, we all know the answer to that. You work extremely hard. I think my only concern, you know what, we'll talk outside of this. I think that's more appropriate. But no, the only question I have, and I don't remember this from last year, was are we also discussing staff's increases?
No, the item before us is just the performance review, the
Okay.
executive director.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to make sure. You gotta look out for staff too. Think about you guys. I know, we'll talk offline about some concerns. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair. I'm going to turn now to board member Cruz.
Thank you for always being proactive and helping us secure federal funding, helping us apply to the TPA grants. This was the entity that applied to the grant that is allowing Boynton Beach Boulevard to be updated and fixed, which is great. It's going to benefit all of our residents. You are a professional and I'm very grateful for everything you do. Yeah, thank you for always putting the interests of the public first and for, you know, fighting for the city and the CRA area, for the community, finding opportunities for us to get things done. And, you know, I'm really glad with some of the projects that have been accomplished or, you know, are in the pipeline now. Some of those include home ownership, which is fantastic. Yeah, thank you for all you do. And I guess we'll continue discussing the remainder of issues. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. Twee, you know how I feel about you, and I don't need to belabor the point. And with that, I am comfortable saying it's time for the car allowance. And I'm also comfortable with a modest pay increase. What that % increase will be, I want to hear from my board members if that is something that they're willing to do. But I believe it is appropriate and well deserved. All right.
What did we do last year?
What % last year?
Yeah, was it 6%?
6% last year.
6%.
That's interesting.
Would you like to comment, board member Kelly? Let's begin with you.
And this is just kind of, I don't want to say off topic, but I know in the budget, we did budget for staff increases. Do you know what that percentage was?
Last year, the board approved, and actually the budget that allows a 6% COLA, cost of living, and a up to 5% merit raise. So depending, that's not by right. I'm looking to also do the same thing here because there's been, data that shows that the cost of living in South Florida has increased for inflation rate anyway, 9 up to 9 point something percent. So we are one of the highest location. And in order for us, in my opinion, to keep, staff moving forward and while keeping their bills, their home as well, I would recommend the same thing, and that would be under your general budget, and it's within my discretion for the performance. So that can support it. The cost of living is 8%, so we're just asking for a modest 6% rate.
Right. Got it. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that in my mind that it matched. So I'm comfortable with a 6% increase and the car allowance is fine.
Plus the 5, right? So 11 total?
That's for staff, yes.
staff.
And if you would
Okay.
like, that's, it's solely up to your discretion. as
So
well.
Board Member Kelly, I heard you say 6%
Mhm.
for the executive director,
Correct.
as well as the car allowance.
Correct.
All right, thank you. Board Member Hay.
I find that quite fascinating because if you look at my spreadsheet, which I created, 6% comes to 10,632.24. So I'm in favor of 6% plus the car.
All right, Vice Chair.
I'm okay with that.
All right, Board Member Cruz.
I'm in favor of 6% and the car allowance, yes.
All right, you have unanimous agreement here for a 6% increase of your salary. Council, I feel like you're about to say something before I can finish.
Please finish.
And the car allowance, that was it. I was going to turn to public comment, but go ahead.
No, you're proceed.
Okay, all right. If you would like to speak specifically on this item, now would be the time to approach the podium. Seeing no one approaching the podium, we're going to go to those online. Ms. Kerfman, do we have anybody with their digital hands raised?
No hands are raised at this time.
No hands are raised. Public comment on this item is now closed. And could we put up on the screen a formal motion? I want to make sure we are crossing our T's and dotting our I's. There is no clear motion there, but if anybody would like to make a motion to approve the 6% increase in the base salary.
Motion to approve 6% increase plus the
Second.
car allowance.
Plus the car allowance. I heard a motion from Board Member Hay. Is there a second?
Second.
From Vice Chair Turkin. A motion and a second has been made. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those who oppose the motion say no. The ayes have it. Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, Executive Director.
Thank you. If I may, I just want to also really thank our staff. Our staff works, endless hours. They also take good care of the citizens. The citizens know them by name. They certainly have continuity, which is great to have for, again, institutional knowledge is a lot when it comes to government. And thank you to our attorney who keeps us on the straight and narrow as well. And I really can't do my job without all of their help. So thank you for your support as well. So I will strive to do always better. And I'm always available if there's any questions.
Vice Chair.
No, I'm okay with the 11% for staff or whenever we decide that. I want to go ahead and say that publicly.
All right. Thank you.
Up to 11%, yes.
Yeah, I'm okay with at 11.
Okay, okay.
Well, you would draw.
All right, we're going to move on.
Or vote.
We're now moving on to Section 15, CRA projects in progress. There were 2 items that were pulled. 15A, the Boynton Beach night market recap, and after which we will hear for the NOP update.
Good evening, Board. Mercedes Coppin, Business Promotions and Events Manager. Just one moment while we get our presentation pulled up, please. Next slide, please. Okay, great. So we had an amazing turnout for our activation on July 29th for this year's Boynton Beach Night Market. We were very excited to have 70 vendors participate at the event. This included 17 Boynton Beach CRA businesses, plus one on-site activation from a CRA business, which was Fly and Flow Fitness. There's really no way for us to know for sure how many people were in attendance, but I can tell you it was absolutely packed. We are guesstimating that it was between 2,500 and 3,000 attendees throughout the entire evening. Now, in an effort to assist our local CRA businesses, we wanted them to stand out, so we provided them with colorful tents as well as glow items to encourage our patrons to visit their booths and learn about their products and services. We were able to promote 3 businesses with unique activations throughout the night market, and that did include Fly and Flow Fitness. They had some of their instructors as well as their Fly students, their Fly Girl students, performing aerial arts in front of the stage. Man Cave for Men conducted a fashion show to show off some of their haircuts as well as some of their colorful hairstyles. And Picnics in Paradise set up a luxury pop-up picnic display during the event. Next slide, please. Following the event, we did send out a feedback survey to our participating CRA businesses. As of today, we've received 11 survey responses. Overall, the feedback that we received was very positive, with 82% of businesses stating that they were very satisfied with the amount of sales made during the event. 82% also noticed an increase of the number of people visiting their business following the event. And all respondents stated that they would want to participate in future CRA-hosted activations. Next slide, please. Now, in an effort to gauge feedback from the community and to also obtain some demographic information, during the event, patrons were encouraged to participate in a quick, short feedback survey. And basically with that, we just asked them to spin the wheel for their opportunity to win gift certificates to our local businesses. We had a total of 251 survey responses, and that did indicate that 58% of the respondents lived in Boynton Beach, 32% in Palm Beach County, 6% within Florida, and then 4% out of state. And just to give you a little bit more information regarding the zip code specifically within Florida, the majority of the attendants were from Boynton Beach, followed by Lake Worth, West Palm Beach, Boca Raton, Pompano, Wellington, Deerfield, and then there were other southern municipalities included as well. Now, we did learn that 84% were first-time attendees, which I was very shocked by, and that was amazing. And as far as the marketing, 54% learned about the event on social media, 23% word of mouth from family or friends, and 20% from a poster or a street sign. Next slide. And these are just some additional photos from the event. If you are interested in viewing all the photos that our professional photographer captured, those are on our Flickr. It's flickr.com/Boynton Beach CRA. Can I ask you any questions? Okay.
Oh, wait, hold on, no question, but I would like to make a comment about that night, what do we call it? The night market. It was, as the kids would say, it was off the chain. It was one of the better ones that I've attended. In spite of the heat, the people were very positive and having fun, and I just cannot believe it. I tried to visit every food truck, but you know, I didn't have the right budget. I forgot. I brought the wrong wallet, but but that was really, really well done. And I was thinking the next time, and I got to talk to Andrew about providing some shade and with the possibility of moving it. I think Turkin brought up about moving it to November or something like that. But be that as it may, that was one great event. And people were in the hot sun. I don't know how they did it. They were just dancing and just having a really, really good time. So whatever you did, I mean, you had 4% to come from out of state. That is just unheard of. How in the world,
Been
you know,
visiting.
84% first timers. That is a great statistic. That so Mercedes, you and your staff and the whole CRA just doing a great job on these events. And I think it's really putting Boynton Beach name on the map. And there's just wait and see. There's more to come. So keep doing the job that you're doing. Great job.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else from Mercedes, Board Member Cruz?
Thank you to all staff that worked in this event. It was phenomenal. I got to bring my doggy, and he was so happy too. It was a great event. I actually got to see some of my constituents have tents at the CRA event, so I was just really happy to see that. The event was phenomenal. There was great music. Everybody was happy. Like, it was just only positivity. Really, really excited to see that more people in our community are attending our events, and there's just so much interest from our own residents to come to these events, which is so great. That's what we definitely want. And interesting to see people from West Palm Beach ditching their own city to come hang out in Boynton. I love to see that. So thank you.
Vice Chair?
I've already said this. This is awesome. I love the data. You know, that shows that this works. We need to invest in this. Yeah, I was there all night. It was a great time. And I know you guys stayed late too, so thank you. I know you guys stayed super late.
So we all helped, and especially our staff. We had our events hat on, and we were there from 10 o'clock. Actually, our staff, Mercedes and event staff, and our other staff came in 10 o'clock in the morning till what, 1 or
Yeah,
12:30 at night.
12:45.
So it's behind the scenes, but to make that 3 or 4 hours safe, successful, everybody, it's really, they've outdone themselves every year.
Yeah. So
If I could just say one other thing, I just want to thank Twee as well as Tim and everyone else on staff for their support with these events. And I especially want to thank Gabby. Gabby came in, and in January she made it 70 vendors. That is no small feat. That is a huge job, having 70. We were up 20 vendors from last year. And I just want to give her kudos. And again, thank everyone on staff for supporting us.
And that involves contracts, insurance, making sure they get there on time, being at the right tent.
Yes.
And any troubleshooting. So she's amazing.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mercedes. Oh, I'm sorry. One more. Board Member
Had
Kelly.
one comment. I unfortunately, the last week of July, I've missed the last two. The last week of July happens to be my family vacation week. So I've literally not been to one of these, but super excited to see that you've done things to kind of target our CRA businesses by the, the different colored tents and the, to draw attention to those businesses. I mean, clearly it works if you have people going back to those businesses. And I think we've seen a huge increase from even our Rock the Blocks, which are, geared specifically towards those businesses. So, I'm hopefully one of these years I'll make it to one, but if it's the last week of July, probably not. So we'll just, I'll just say thank you for all you do, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right. Thank you. We're going to move on to our final item, which is 15D, Neighborhood Officer Program Third Quarter Report for fiscal year 2022-2023. Executive Director, would you like to open this? Or should we go directly to the captain?
Just introduce Captain Brodowski. And this is our first quarterly report since we resumed the program. And I'll turn that over. If you see, the format's a little more streamlined, and thanks to the captain and his crew. With that, I'll turn that over.
Good evening, Captain Brodowski. Board, I'm not certain if you've had a chance to review the report, but I'll give you a 10,000-foot view of the report, and if there's any questions, we can dig down deeper into the material in the report. So moving to page 7, the executive summary. During the quarter, the CRA officers, and just so we know, the quarter, we took a little bit of March. We started we reinstituted the program on March 27th, and this report covers from March 27th to June 30th of 23. and we'll go over the highlights for that quarter. During the quarter, the CRA officers attended 12 community events or meetings, conducted 11 separate business walks with CRA staff, performed 35 business checks or visits to businesses on their own outside from the CRA staff, obtained 12 trespass agreements with local business and churches, attended 3 CRA full board or advisory board meetings, and made 35 criminal arrests within the CRA district. I think it's important to note that the business walks and checks conducted by the CRA officers or in collaboration with CRA staff were opportunities to build bridges and relationships with the CRA district business community. During these self-initiated contacts, the CRA officers and staff listen to concerns and problems and provide information and solutions to the business community. These grassroots contacts serve as critical information sources and as a foundational basis for creativity and problem solving. Like business walks and checks, community meetings and events serve to inform the CRA officers and police department command staff of concerns, but the concerns voiced in these venues and these meetings generally are more individual and community based. These meetings, community concerns regarding traffic problems, crime, and community cleanliness are brought forward among others by the attendees at the meeting. The CRA officers and police staff respond to the community concerns by providing input and recommendations when appropriate to work with other city departments to resolve these concerns swiftly and efficiently. And this is an important component that I stress with the officers that you know, we've had this discussion here. I've been here for the entire meeting, how important it is to work as one unit, as to one city, one community. So we stress that with the officers, that we work with our other departments to solve and bring resolution to problems. We see that by doing this, community confidence in not only in law enforcement, but in city government increases when we can work as a whole of government approach. So I will also go over some of the CRA's, some of the CRA crime stats very briefly with you. So for the quarter, the CRA district, and this is only for the CRA districts, it's not the city as a whole, saw two armed robberies that took place and 8 aggravated assaults or batteries in the month of April. In the month of May, they saw one robbery, 7 aggravated assault and batteries. In June, they saw another robbery and 6 aggravated assaults and batteries. Some of the more commonly seen crimes were property crimes. For the month of May, we saw 58 property crimes, 42 property crimes. I'm sorry, in April 58, 42 in May, 53 in June. The department overall, to include arrests by the CRA officers, they saw 42 arrests, non-drug arrests. And in May, they saw 50. And in June, it was 53. There were 12 drug arrests in April, 13 drug arrests in May, and 20 drug arrests in June. Calls for service ran approximately 2,400 to 2,500 calls per service in the CRA district by month. That pretty much covers the crimes that we saw within the CRA district. There's other graphics that display some of those crimes in pie charts and bar charts within the report that can be reviewed by the board at a later time if they choose. I think the first quarter was good for the officers to get engaged in the community, to make the contacts with the businesses in the community, and not only that, to make the contacts with the people within the city that they needed to make contacts with. I think this CRA program is a little bit more robust than our previous program in the sense that we're trying to be multifaceted. And we're trying to engage the community while also serving the community. And we hope that we can continue to do that and hopefully grow the CRA program by one officer. The department, if we do that, is going to place a sergeant as well in that position at no cost to the CRA. But they're going to place a sergeant over those officers to provide leadership and direction of those officers if that is done in FY24. So we're hopeful that that can occur, and we want to continue to grow the program, not necessarily by individuals that represent the program, but to continue to grow the program by reaching out to the community, making contacts, and having an impact on the CRA's district for the CRA and the people that live in the CRA's district, and also the whole of the city, because what we do in the CRA district will also be heard and seen and will transfer to the rest of the city. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Captain. And are there any questions or comments from my colleagues while he's on the podium?
Yes.
Board Member Hay? Go ahead.
Also, when you guys move into the new facility, Howard Boynton Village Apartment,
Yes, sir.
how do you see that? Do you see that as a benefit to you, and how?
Yes, it'll be a benefit because we will have a place to remain in the community when we need to do reports and also have meetings within the community. It'll give us that venue, and it'll keep us in the area and be there for immediate contact if necessary. We're going to set up a system. We don't plan to staff it 24 hours. I mean, meaning we don't plan to have an officer in there all the time because it's just not feasible to do that. Even in the police department, we don't have an officer sitting in the police department 24/7 to address people that walk in the door. We have support staff that does that, but we don't have police officers in the police department. The best place for a police officer to be is to be out in the community and available for response. It will be a location that we can use for meetings, for getting work done, making phone calls, doing follow-up investigations and those type of things. That's what that facility will be used for.
I know it's early in the program, but what have you seen to be your biggest challenge so far?
I would say
Be help.
I'm not certain we've had one large challenge. I think the officers, because they were seasoned officers, were given clear expectations, which were in the report, and you can see those expectations that were provided to them. And they immediately went out there and started to establish those relationships. But it's important to establish those relationships. You can't do it overnight. But by doing that, the officers are getting phone calls, they're getting contacts, not only from business owners, but from clergy and whatnot. And, we've been invited to meetings within the CRA district, which you were at. And so I wouldn't say we've had one significant challenge, but we're always going to be challenged with continuing to broaden our relationships, because those are the most important things that bring outcomes to the community and help us make a difference for the community. So I guess if there had to be one challenge, it's knowing that you can't stop with those relationships, and you got to continue to make those relationships on a constant basis. One contact isn't enough to establish a relationship.
Good answer. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Board Member Kelly?
I just wanted to say thank you. I mean, clearly from this summary, you guys and the officers are doing exactly what we had hoped for this program to be, and even more in my eyes. You've done more in this quarter than I think we could have, we could have expected. And so I just thank you. Thank you for jumping right out there in the community and making those contacts and attending the meetings and not being afraid to get out there and to do that. So I just wanted to say thank you. And I look forward to, to continuing to support this program because it is important to our district or to the CRA district in this area. And so just thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
I just want to thank y'all again. Thank you for bringing back some data too. It looks like this program is working. We're seeing a decrease. And so I think, it goes to show that presence goes a long way. The other thing that wasn't in here was I want to thank y'all for being at some of the nonprofit events too within the CRA district. I know y'all were at the backpack drive. The mayor was there as well. And so I think stuff like that is huge too. And I don't know if that's even mandatory or not with, y'all's contract. So I think that's great that we're doing that. And I think the picture with Officer Davis and the dog is hysterical. And I think it needs to be blasted all over the place. So thank y'all for what you do.
Right there.
So good.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair. With that, I believe that concludes that item. If there's nothing else, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye, the motion passes. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you so much and be well.